Hi, I'm Kale, and I'm a preacher's daughter.
My name's Eden, and I'm also a preacher's daughter.
And this is Gay Girls, Good God.
Christian content from a queer perspective.
Coming from you live, this is Gay Girls, Good God. You have to, the longer you pause, the more newsy it gets.
Oh, there's just like a running news thing on the bottom. It's like, this just in, 3 Babylonians found dead, killed over clay
in a
pots.
lion's den.
Yeah, in a lion's den. Bitch, Kale, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
I'm glad to hear it.
I've been planting. My mom came and visited.
Okay.
We planted some flowers. I bought some, and then today I went and got some cat grass for my cats to eat.
Now explain to the listeners what cats are. No, what cat grass is.
It's just grass. Because, you know, cats, one thing about cats is they're going to munch on something, and my cats love to munch on the grass in the backyard. Yeah, they love going in the backyard and eating the grass and just laying in the shade. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to get some cat grass. And I also bought them some fresh catnip because Jet loves catnip. I think he needed to have the real thing. And they thoroughly enjoyed rolling in it this afternoon.
That's so like Portlandia of like, well, we don't give our cats regular catnip. We give them organic homegrown
fresh
catnip.
From the garden.
Mm-hmm. It comes from the earth. Why make it illegal? Like, it's very that.
Yeah.
Love that. Benny and Jet also, which we've had at least Benny on the pod before.
Yes, Benny's definitely been on the pod
It
once.
cannot be overstated.
Jet has played the piano on the pod.
Jet has played the piano. I think we cut that out for y'all, but I don't know. It might still be in the episode. Regardless, I don't think we can overstate how truly part of the family Benny and Jet are.
Oh, yes.
We need to have a cat pod.
Oh my God! The other day, we had cat pod with Benny and Jet. The other day, I came in here and Benny was sitting in my chair, facing like this direction, and Jet was sitting in your chair, and they were facing each other.
Which I feel like you are kind of more Benny and I.
Oh yeah, like, I am very much the cowering, and you're like the.
I wouldn't say cowering, but
I'm the highly sensitive. I'm
you're
going
like,
to be.
No, yeah, I'm a piece of shit.
I'm gonna sit and then observe and then walk. You're gonna walk straight
off the cliff. Yeah. And I'm gonna be like, wow, it's very windy
okay,
up
what's
here.
going on in this room? Okay, I'm gonna walk in.
You walking around like I love in cop shows when they, which I don't watch Cop Again anymore, but like in a past life.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, R.I.P.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, R.I.P. They walk around the corner with their guns like this. They go, clear. Like, I love that. Me going into the kitchen at 3 a.m. to get a drink of water. Like, wait.
Honestly. Oh, the turn?
Mama, I shampooed my hair recently, so she like actually flips.
Incredible.
See, working in food service and being required by Georgia state law to wear a hat when you're there, my hair gets crunchy, smunchy, like greasy, sweaty.
Yeah.
And so most of the time, my hair is like, I'll move my head and it like moves with it, kind of like this dry
There's
helmet.
there's no like body to it.
No, like there's volume because it's so dry and crispy.
Yeah.
It's kind of giving like bat's nest, you know, emo hair when it's the like crunchy bat's
it's just
nest.
matted.
Yeah. But every once in a while when the time is right and I give my bleached, disgusting, off-tone hair a shampoo and I'm like, oh, it flows like water. It's everything to me.
Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sister Eden, who are you praying for on this Saturday? Evening?
Saturday
Yeah.
evening. Time means nothing anymore.
It does.
You know what? This week I am actually praying for my bestie Fear.
Okay.
Fear, aka Jupiter, aka that bitch. I am praying for her. She is currently trapped in Florida. I think she recently started waitressing, which I'm very proud of her. But she needs to find herself a rich old man. Because she's one of the most stunningly gorgeous.
She put you up to this.
No, I would maybe. But genuinely, Fear is one of the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life. To the point that it's
she's
it's
beautiful.
like fuck you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you guys ever have that friend that you're hanging out with them and you're like, I'm going to murder you and rip your face off and put it on mine?
Yeah.
That's Fear, and she knows. I tell her daily. That's why whenever she's around me, she has a knife pointed at me at all times.
So any rich old men listening to our pod?
Our target demographic, rich old men.
Historically, yeah.
Friend of the pod, rich old
men.
men. Yeah. If you would like a stunning semi-transsexual twink from Florida, hit me up. I'll get you in contact. Kale,
Incredible.
who are you praying for?
Not that I care, but I think it needs to be said. I'm praying for Kate Middleton.
Speak on it.
Where
bitch.
is she?
Speak up. Okay, first of all, quick question. Before we get into this, what are our fans' names? Because it can't just be gay girls.
Are they the congregation?
The congregation.
Congregants.
We said that, yeah.
The congregants.
The congregation.
Yeah, congregation.
Congregation. Okay. Listen up, congregation. We need all of you to be praying for Kate Middleton because she's evil or whatever because of what she did to Miss Ma'am.
Yes, but she's missing.
She's missing. Mama, they are going to Diana her.
Hey, Jet. Jet just walked across the laptop. Is everything
Are we good?
okay?
Is the audio okay?
I think we're good. Yeah, I haven't really been paying too much attention to it because I don't really care that much about the royal family. But every time I see something about it, I'm like, oh my God, that actually is kind of weird.
Bitch, I've been, I live on Twitter.
Yes.
You know I live on Twitter. I have been eating all of that shit up. Let me tell you, bitch, they are, listen.
Didn't they Photoshop her into like family photos?
Yes, literally
using a Vogue cover or something. Or
that I don't believe they like tried to overlay her face or
Yeah.
whatever, and it was like it's fake, girl. It's the same face.
Yeah,
what it
that's
looks
true.
like happened is they tried to Photoshop different clothes onto the people from an old photo to make
And
it
then
look
the
like a different
bricks and the
season.
cars were, and the
Yup.
wall was different.
Yup.
Yeah.
So and like the British like press even killed it. They were like, this is obviously fake. Don't use it. That's crazy.
Historically, that's a great sign. And then the government's gonna be like, shut it down.
Shut it
This is
down.
fake.
Shut it down. Because for those of you who don't know, like, bitch, the UK media, like British, like English especially, like they eat the royal family up. They exist to suck their royal shrinked up, shriveled incest dick. Like that is
Yeah.
their job. So for them to be like, girl. The prevailing theory that I saw via Twitter, so you know it's true, but
Yeah.
that seems very compelling, is that his Prince what's his face, his mistress had a got pregnant with his child, and decided that she wanted to have it. And for Kate, that was like her breaking point. She snapped, and they were like, "Bitch, blah blah blah." So she had to be hospitalized, like either like because she's going cuckoo or because
a mad woman art.
A mad woman art, bitch. Kate, come on the pod. We'll interview.
Kate. You have the opportunity to do the funniest thing.
Go on, gay girls. Good God.
I know. I just meant a revenge dress.
Bitch, the revenge that will be revung is going to be so
And then she'll
important.
die.
It was going to be what?
And then she'll die.
Mama, she's probably already dead. What are we talking
True.
about? If she is dead, come back and haunt them. If not, come on the pod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll sit you down and we'll talk, Kate Middleton.
You can wear your revenge dress right here in Georgia. We'll talk to you about God.
And we'll take you to Chili's after.
Mama, I mean, if we're feeling especially fancy, I don't know.
Kate Middleton to the Chili's.
It might intimidate her. It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
We should start off basic with Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll DoorDash it while we like get drunk and watch Kung Fu Panda 2.
Which was our night last night.
Yeah, exactly.
The DoorDash driver getting lost and taking
my
like
God.
an hour and a half to get here.
I
with the
fell
wrong,
asleep in the time.
Got here with the wrong order after an hour of driving to other people's houses, and I was like, "It's okay, I've been a DoorDash driver." I'm like, I know. Well, she showed up with the wrong one. I was like, "Hey, bestie, this is the wrong one." She's like, "Okay." Another 45 minutes to go to the other one. I was like, this is kind of funny. Like this, like
Was it? And it was frozen. It was cold.
Mama, ice cold. What's cooler than being cool? Ice cold. That DoorDash, Mama. I was kind of living. It was kind of funny. I loved it. Comedy gold.
Comedy gold. All right, Sister Eden,
Kale.
are you ready to dive into today's topic?
I'm about to die. Yes.
This is another one of our no plan episodes.
No
We have a
plan.
topic just because we've talked about this with each other so much
Girl,
that
how could we not?
we don't need structure. We're just gonna yap. It's a yapper,
It's a yapper.
folks. We have a yapper.
Get the yapper. Very that. You've heard of the clap. Get ready for the yap.
The yap.
The yap, Mama.
So, it's crazy that we haven't dedicated an episode to this particular person so far because you would think that they should be the focal point of the religion of itself. But today,
Steve Buscemi.
exactly,
Yes.
we're talking about Steve Buscemi. No, we're talking about you, Prince of Peace, Emmanuel, Son of God, other names.
What's his name again? I haven't
His
heard
name's
it.
Jesus.
Jesus.
That's
H.
right.
Christ.
Jesus Christ. God Jr.
Jesus fucking Christ. I think one of the stupidest and simplest jokes that I've seen before that I think about all the time still is what was Jesus' last name? They go, of Nazareth. I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Jesus' last name being of Nazareth. Nazareth.
Anyways, so Sister Kale, we're just talking about Jesus in general today.
Well, so just for some background, Jesus is a person that we are pretty sure historically existed from around 6 to 4 BC, and then started a ministry around 30 AD, and then from 27 to 30 AD, and then was crucified from around 30 to 36 AD.
That is a very long crucifixion.
Yeah, they were
a 6-year
It took
crucifixion.
6 years for crucifixion.
She was up there, and then after a while, they're like, can we go home?
We broke his legs. We stabbed him. Isn't he like on a schedule or something? I thought it was supposed to be a 3-day thing. Ahead of ourselves.
I'm getting
so there's a lot of interesting things about Jesus that we could talk about, and we're gonna get to some of them. But I just think the character of Jesus is so interesting. So this is Gay Girls Good God, because he is the only chill person in the Bible. Well, he's not the only chill person, but he's like one of the only chill people in the Bible.
No, you know what? You're so right, because especially like Old Testament and New Testament, the drama is unparalleled. Everyone is always murdering, cheating, scheming, lying, worshiping. Like everything is dialed up to 100 at all times. And then Jesus comes along and he's like, I am literally the Son of God, but like, just like y'all are doing too much.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole plot of Jesus is him going around for like 30 years being like, you guys, you're doing too much. You've lost the plot. Jesus came down to say, you've lost the plot.
What are you doing?
Dial it back. You're selling shit in the temples.
Yeah.
You're throwing stones. You're doing all that. Like, take a chill
He was
pill.
a commentator on like the late Roman Empire.
Jesus definitely would have had a Twitch stream. Jesus with cat ear headphones. Jesus with cat ear. So, hey, you guys. After the top of the hour ad break, we're going to be talking about.
We're going to be turning water into wine.
Later, we're going to be having Hassan on the stream, and I'm going to absolve him of his sins. So
drop in the chat if you got your bread and your wine. Just say body and blood up. Do this in remembrance of me, and thank you for the subs.
Paul, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. Judas, thank you for the... Oh.
Judas has left the chat.
Period.
Anyway, if you can't tell, we are two girls who love Jesus.
What?
The idea of Jesus.
Yeah,
I love the idea of Jesus.
I'm not going to lie, and this, don't even bring up the conversation we were having before this podcast, but I feel like I have a lot of erotic desire for Jesus.
Earlier, so obviously I'm a lesbian Jesus.
Yes.
That's how I'm dressed today.
Remove your loincloth.
My loincloth.
This is lesbian
Jesus.
Jesus.
You can see in my wrist because that's where he actually would have been hung by the cross because there's no support in the palm. So if you heard that, that's wrong. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that. We have to have biblically accurate crucifixions, folk, and scientifically accurate.
And I am the 3 days of darkness that fell over the world after his crucifixion. Finding new and creative ways to excuse myself wearing all black. Let me
Spen.
Okay, that's me.
Incredible. So yeah, Jesus is just, I don't know what it is, but you just can't help but like love,
Wanna
like
fuck him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Something like some desire of like he will raise you up. He is risen.
Mama. He is risen. Jesus, take him
Never
on the
seen that one. That is not original. I did not come up with that.
I kind of love that though. He is risen. Him on the Twitch stream.
Hashtag he is risen.
Mary Magdalene on the stream. Like, so, what do you want to say to the
by
watcher?
the way, first of all, Jesus was a bisexual.
You know, we can't take that from the asexual community. They like to think Jesus is asexual. If you're Protestant, Jesus was asexual. If you're Catholic, Jesus was a whore.
I like the idea that I've seen that you'll just see like evangelicals or deconstructionists all the time, like just quote like talking about the Bible stuff because we're still obsessed with it, just in a different way.
Well, girl, what else do we have?
Yeah, but saying that like you if you're gonna take the idea of Jesus being like the Son of Man, the true Son of Man, that you have to either accept that he was gay or that he truly didn't experience every human, like everything human.
Oh, you mean that like the point of Jesus was to experience all temptation but to engage in no sin?
Yes.
And so if
or you have to say that it's not a sin to be gay.
Yes. So that like if Christians believe that being gay is a sin, then that would inherently mean that Jesus would have had to experience same-sex temptation.
Gay thoughts, yeah.
Ooh.
Or it's not a sin.
Ancient Hebrew dick in the booty hole. Mama,
Yes.
That's like, I'm telling you.
This also all comes back to this. Yeah, I think that...
Him washing some bitch with his fucking hair? Wait, not with his hair. That was the other bitch. Him washing some people's feet?
Yeah,
that's
just
crazy.
washing... yeah.
Jesus had a foot fetish. He was bisexual. And he was a carpenter. So you know that shit was ripped.
Yeah.
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 So another thing about Jesus is coming from a sort of, I guess, looking at all religions as telling different parts of a story, if you want to look at it from that angle, a lot of people like to take the idea of Jesus as the the God energy, the higher self, removing some of its own consciousness to become incarnate, like the whole idea of the incarnation of Jesus being God and what that entails and how he like had to give up some of his knowledge, I think is a very interesting concept.
I think we brushed on this a little bit in our hippy dippy rant that we ended our last episode with.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen that, go watch the last episode, which was about Eden and the birth of consciousness.
Great episode. But kind of both Kale and I think everyone in just different iterations believes that like what to be human is to be given the gift of consciousness, right?
And that like consciousness is simply the experience of the universe experiencing itself. You know what I mean? Like we're just ultra complex chemical like expressions of like these mathematical like, you know, solar flares of the universe moving into the shape of a human body, gaining consciousness. And that like the idea of there's this all-encompassing omni-god that then is fully channeled into the human that is both fully God and fully man,
right,
is kind of an exact representation
of what it means to be human.
Period, exactly. And it's like, and for the ideal of like, that's what it means to be human, and also the ideal of being human is to, with that experience, engage in no like sin, which means like to miss the mark or whatever.
Right.
So to like basically the point of being human and having this conscious experience is to live a higher ordered moral life above what all other forms of like the universe are able to. So I think that at its core, that is like kind of the like, yeah, that's the central tenet of what it means to be human. So it's cool to see it expressed in that way.
Yeah. And so that's sort of like the background of like Jesus and what his incarnation means. In some ways, to Christians, obviously, he is the Son of God. Like he is the retribution who is going to make right what was wronged in Eden. So coming off the Eden episode, whenever
Coming on Eden.
whenever Adam and Eve are cast out of the garden, God says, you know, I will send someone to like strike you, like talking to the serpent. And you will bite his heel and he will strike your head or crush your head or something like that. And that's referring to Jesus. So he comes to fix what Eden lost. Sorry, you lost it.
Bitch, if I had $1 for everything I lost, you dropped the ball.
And so his death represents that new covenant, that ultimate sacrifice for the sins of all. And that way, all you have to do is accept him into your heart and you can go to heaven.
I feel like we'll eventually do an episode on the crucifixion itself, but
no,
what
yeah,
we've talked
that's
about
the
before,
gist of it today.
is like if you aren't that familiar like with the church and its doctrine, like of like, you know, Protestantism or like Jesus and Christianity in general, or if you just never really like thought about it and paid attention in church, like what we talk about a lot is that it really is a beautiful like story and idea, like the myth of the crucifixion, because like the whole point of Jesus within the context of Christianity is that all of the Old Testament and like quote unquote the old law entailed so much fucking sacrifice and all of these arbitrary rules and all of this representation of like blood and like if this happens you have to sacrifice an animal and every year we sacrifice all of these animals and like this is unclean, this is unclean, this is unclean, you can't like wear mixed fabrics, you can't eat these foods, you can't do this, you can't do that. And then the whole point of Jesus coming is that it's like he lives this perfect life and thus by bearing the only unjustified suffering and the only unjustified death in all of human existence, he becomes the vessel through which all of that uncleanliness can be absolved and channeled. That's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like sitting, like if you were to try and sit down and think of something that compelling and like on that grand of a scale, I feel like it would be almost fucking impossible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a beautiful story. And like there's two ways that I look at this. Number one,
that's cosmic.
It is.
Yeah.
Like, and also just thinking about like the death of one pure for the collective dirty whole. Oh my god!
I don't even have to say it.
You don't. But you know, just like self-sacrifice for the good of everything. Anyway, but also the idea that Jesus had to come in the first place, but God being like, all of y'all deserve to die. But I'm gonna do it.
But I'm gonna, you know,
but
I had
I'm
to
gonna
do it.
do it.
You know, I love there is this weird tension in like the Christian canon. I haven't done enough research. I would love to someday about the actual like translations and the different regional like myths that became Christianity. But it does seem like in different like texts, it does very much seem like there is a trinity.
Yes.
Like there are 3 different entities that make up like God, and God the Son is one of those, and he's the one that chose to came down. But then, like, in the Christian canon, it was then, like, decided, like, they are 3 in 1, which great combo deal. And also, I love the idea of multiplicity.
The Trinity is so sexy.
Yes, bitch. It's
that
so
we
sexy.
have that, like, even if you see that as Jesus being like our God being the idea of consciousness, you have the higher self, you have the spirit, and then you have the physical. Like, if you want to look at it from that level,
the ego, the super ego, and the id. Yeah.
Jesus.
Shout out to Jesus. You would have loved Freud.
Also, speaking of Freud and Jesus, and Jesus,
no, let's not.
The weird relationship that Jesus the Son and God the Father and God the Son had with each other. Can we talk about that?
The daddy issues of it all.
And the way that he had this Percy Jackson moment when he got baptized where God put his little symbol over it.
Yes, exactly, bitch. Ooh, literally. Imagine, because let's assume like that the Christian myth is like true historically.
I was gonna say, for this episode, we're gonna, for all purposes of this, because we're talking about the Jesus that we know.
Yes.
So it's gonna be just taking it at face
value.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine what it would be like to both fully inhabit human consciousness and thus grow up like you shit yourself and you have to learn how to speak and walk and all that shit. But also, you know that you are the son of like God, the all-encompassing, all-powerful, like
Capital G God.
Capital G God. The double consciousness of that experience would be insane. You know what I mean?
He would be put in an institution.
And that's why it's so hard for me to live, because as the second coming, it's just so hard for me to like deal with you all, you know?
Yeah.
The second coming, me when I started estrogen and lost my refractory period.
Oh. Good.
Pay me dust.
This is I think this is all relevant to Jesus.
And it is.
Because Jesus would have been chill. He'd been like, I'll take some estrogen. That'd be
Jesus with titties, bitch.
Yeah, he'd be like, that sounds cool. I need to, for the experience.
She's like, well, I have to experience all things, so I have to experience womanhood also to experience their temptations.
So, guess I'm getting titties. So, guys, GoFundMe below if you'll link it in the bio. Get Jesus titties. Thank you again for the 10 subs.
And as the second coming of Christ, I would appreciate if you donated to my
Exactly,
fund.
perfect segue.
Exactly, perfect segue.
So when you're giving to Edens, just think you are giving Jesus titties.
Giving Jesus titties. Who want to see Jesus with hot tits? Me. Judas.
Judas. Yeah.
Judas is scary on.
So to give a timeline of Jesus' life briefly, because I've kind of skipped around and I meant to give the timeline first. So like I said, he was born from 6 to 4, somewhere between 6 and 4 BC. And we don't know much about his life. We have, again, from the different gospels, we have sort of a weird trail of connected stories that we can sort of see his childhood. But things really pick up whenever he turned 30. So if you're in your 20s, 30. Much like Bo Burnham. Problematic. So if you're in your 20s and you don't really have a direction right now, don't worry, neither did Jesus.
Yeah. He was just meandering.
He was just a carpenter. He was just doing his little crafts.
You know what? Harrison Ford was also a carpenter until he was in his 30s.
Harrison
Jesus
Ford,
Ford.
Jesus incarnate. Welcome back.
Welcome back, Jesus.
Jesus Christ. Wow. Anyway, so he started performing miracles in his 30s, and then he has this baptism story where his cousin baptized him and then got beheaded. Right after John the Baptist baptized Jesus, Herod came and got him, and they were like, cut his head off. Exactly.
Yeah, great painting, by the way.
One of my personal favorite stories about Jesus happens right after his baptismal, where he goes into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, and he's tempted.
I love that story.
I love that story.
I was obsessed with it because it's like, that's one of the first, one of the only appearances
that's ego
of
death.
The devil. Period.
Also,
he literally went on a spirit quest.
Yeah, that's literally what it is. This is like his spiritual journey was in the desert.
He went up to the sweat lodge.
Yeah,
and he started hallucinating.
And there's a lot of media that depicts the Bible stories in different ways, and I always love to see how they would animate or film that specific part of the Bible where the devil appears. I love whenever people different, because Did you ever see the movie about Moses that came out in the theaters where they had Yahweh be played by a little boy?
No, my dad thought it was sacrilegious.
Yeah, my dad did too after we saw it. He was like, why did they make God a 5-year-old boy?
But that makes sense.
But no,
Why wouldn't they?
It was during Moses. It was like this little 5-year-old boy saying, "We're gonna kill all the kids."
Me at 5.
Him like talking about all the plagues as a 5-year-old boy.
Exactly.
That's the only way they can make him not look angry, was to make him a 5-year-old boy.
Well, yeah, it allows you to access, and it also allows you, I think, that alienation and fundamental disconnect in film of like displaying these incredibly wrathful, vengeful, destructive emotions and ideas through the mouth and image of someone who you like normally would understand is fundamentally incapable of expressing and grasping that.
Right.
That dissonance then allows your brain to recognize the like dissonance and total, I guess, lack of like human morality that can be applied to God in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of like, this doesn't make sense. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't.
You're right.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
It's God.
But enough about Yahweh. This is not his time to
It's not
shine.
his
We're
time.
talking about Jesus.
His actual baby.
I said all that to say I liked the way, because there was this, I don't remember what it was. It might have been The Chosen, but there was this one live action version I saw where it sort of showed it like Jesus was sort of hallucinating, and like it appeared as a mirage at first, and it was just like these little shadows.
Yes.
And that was
Like
that
the
is
lines
so
on the sun,
fun.
and
Yeah.
then they kind of turn into a walking figure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was the devil.
And it was the devil.
And there was the devil.
I love the 40 days and 40 nights thing with him being tempted, like turn these stones into bread, like you know, jump off and let your angels catch you, like all that shit.
That's not the point.
That's not the point, bitch. I'm having the human experience. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I don't know. That's so. I love that in the Christian canon we have the little like sweat lodge spiritual enlightenment moment, because that. Mama, that's transcendentalism. That's going out into the woods and doing acid for transcendence. That's going and doing peyote in the desert. That's going and going mad and growing your nails long and your hair long. And
That's Nebuchadnezzar.
It's Nebuchadnezzar, bitch. That's exactly, Mama, Nebuchadnezzar.
So what we're saying is, go to the desert for 40 days and 40 nights and just see what happens.
What we're saying is that there is, throughout the entire Bible, a deep connection between total animalistic loss of control and thus ego death associated with natural living and connection to nature, that then is presented further and further throughout the progression of the Bible as a more dire and desperate attempt to distance yourself from the moral, like, decrepit state of humanity. And only Jesus, who is able to accomplish this departure without his loss of self, is the one to resolve that and bring us back to a place of Eden.
Only he could do it.
Only he could do it, folks. And only I can annoyingly write about it sometime soon, probably, because I think about it a lot.
So after Jesus had this encounter in the desert, he went on to perform more miracles. He gave many teachings. The most famous is the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes. He like has this whole thing.
My dad loved the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes.
Oh yeah, so did my dad. So we're gonna stop here in the story of Jesus and ask Eden, what is your favorite miracle of Christ?
Oh, that's a good one. It is definitely raising Lazarus from the dead. Lazarus from the dead. No, I lied. That's great. That's incredible. That has so many implications. When the bitch touches his robe,
and she loses her period, and she.
Yes, when the bitch touches his robe and she loses her period.
That's exactly how it was taught to me.
No, because as we all know, if you have your period, you're dirty and unclean and filthy.
Yeah, exactly what we were taught.
Yeah, so trans women are pure. Because
she was saved by faith alone.
So compelled, like at a young age, by the idea that like even just touching his robe, like, and he said like he felt his pass
my
out
dad
of
gave
him.
a sermon on that, like the fact that she just wanted to touch his robe.
Exactly, same. And I was just so moved by that, of this idea that like this figure maintained and like held and was also in control and cognizant of a power that we fundamentally cannot grasp. So much so that like he felt it flow out of him when he performed this miracle, almost like it's this energy system. And my neurodivergent ass as a kid, I was obsessed with the idea of magic systems. Yeah, I have all these old like journals full of like here's how like my magic system works, and like there's like these things called like rods, and like
told me about this.
Girl,
your magic.
it's so
See,
cringe.
I did that, but I did it with world building, and I would just like
Period.
I would build just different like Middle Earths.
Yes, the map drawing as a kid. Unmatched.
Yeah, and there was different, like I would come up with like the creatures who inhabited. Oh, that was my shit right there.
Yes. So I think that miracle was really compelling to me because the other miracles felt like these moments of like, I'm doing a miracle. But this like unintentional accidental miracle, I feel like
it had nothing to do with him and everything to do with her.
Exactly. And I feel like that adds a dimension to Jesus's divinity that is otherwise pretty unexplored in the Bible. And I think that complicates and thus makes it really interesting to think about like his spiritual, magical, religious, like whatever power. How about you? What's your favorite miracle?
Mine is and it's only because of the way that my dad used to tell it. Because my dad is a silly, goofy guy, as we know.
Guy.
He is a comedian first, pastor, and awful person second. No. Exposed. No. Well.
You're like, I'm kidding. Awful person first.
But my dad always liked to say that Jesus must have had a divine sense of humor in the same way.
Of course.
And so he was like, so it's the story of him walking on water and appearing to the disciples.
My dad.
These are his best friends that he has spent the past 3 years every moment with. And he goes for life for a little while and he's like,
his gay lovers.
And he was sitting there just being like, they're about to lose their shit when I show up. They're gonna lose their. I bet he's gonna say it's a ghost. I bet he's gonna do. Peter's gonna try and fucking get in here with me.
he turned to a whale and said, "Watch this shit." He said, "You're not gonna fucking believe."
A whale in the Sea of Galilee.
He handed a fish his phone. He said, "Wait, record this. This is gonna be so funny." He said,
"I'm assisting my dad."
Literally. Yeah. But
so that was always my favorite. I just. You can't take those kinds of things too seriously. So I think that Jesus had to have had a sense of humor about it.
I think so. That's my dad used to talk about it in a similar way of just like, it's this beautiful and powerful thing, but also so human. Of like, he's walking on fucking water and his friend who's just like, oh, like so excited to see him like falling off like into the water and shit, like trying to follow him. Like that's so human.
And they're like, oh my God,
like literally. I mean, like he starts twerking. Chicken ass in the deli.
So that's my favorite miracle, I think. I also love for his first miracle where he turns water into wine at the wedding because he was just trying to help his mom out.
I think
his first miracle was because so he could help his mom.
Exactly.
Jesus.
That's one of the things that I was actually about to bring up is that like talking about like the person touching his robe or whatever, it does almost speak to this like they never say it outright, but it's almost like it almost makes you feel like it's real because it's like there is this internal consistent system with how Jesus's power works. Of it's like it's not necessarily something that he has fully control over because he is fully human, but it's like he's imbued and he like has embedded within him this divine power. And as a child, and when he's young and first learning to use it, he wants to help out his mom. He's like, oh, we need wine. Okay, I'm gonna like, and then he just turns water into wine. And then he makes, and the person is like, the wedding guest is like, why did you save the best wine for last? Like normally we save the worst wine for after everyone's drunk, but this is the best shit. He not only made water into wine, he made good shit, bitch. He said instant wine. Taste aged, baby.
And another thing about that is throughout and more than any other character in the Bible, I mean, arguably maybe Boaz, but not really, the relationship he has with women is
Jesus is a girl's girl.
He's a girl's girl
down. Like he hangs out with men and he teaches men and men worship him, but he gets down with the girlies. And that's the most T-girl thing I've ever heard in my life. He's like, all these men follow me around, want to hear what I talk about, but I can only really connect with the girls.
And the people that he shared, like some of the most like intimate things, like of course there's the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, but also he appeared to women first.
Yes.
You know,
the women were the one who found him, like left from the tomb.
He had this intense friendship with Mary and Martha, who was Lazarus, which is why the whole reason he raised Lazarus is because he had this such like deep connection with like these sisters and their brother.
Who was the woman that fell asleep and fell from the window?
Oh, wait, what?
Did I make that up in my head?
I think you made that up in your head.
It's like after he died, there was a woman who was like fell asleep in the window of like when they were meeting and talking about it, and she fell out of the building and died, but then she came back to life. Did I make that up in my head?
I think you made that up. I mean, I'm not saying I know my Bible better than you.
No, you know your Bible. You know it much better than me.
But if that is something, it's done. So no, it wasn't a woman that fell out.
It was Eutychus the man when Paul was preaching.
Yeah, I knew. I thought there might have been someone falling out of something with Paul, but I didn't know if they died or not.
Don't you open up that window? Oh my
God.
Don't you let.
But yeah,
he
treats women.
Popping pills. Go ahead.
He treats women, and especially like sex workers and women who would have been at the bottom of society because they had sex and people knew about it. I guess.
Listen, if having sex and people knowing about it makes you a bottom. Lock me up.
A famous part of Jesus's life is his disciples, which are the 12 apostles. You only really need to know like 4 or 5 of them.
Bite your tongue.
Let me see. You want to see if we can name all the disciples?
I know I can't. I know I can't.
Okay, never mind.
There's like, cause some of them.
You never hear about exactly. You only know like 5.
And then also some of them have the same name, or some of them have multiple names.
I think there's 2 Peters.
Like Peter, Simon Peter, and then Peter
of Iscariot,
and then Judas, Thomas,
Bartholomew, Andrew,
Bartholomew. That's such
John.
And then some of the names that we use are the anglicized versions, and then some of them aren't, which is crazy.
It's all very confusing. But those were his boys. That was his crew. They were mostly fishermen. Just some guys he probably picked up, basically.
Literally.
Also, he just when he started his ministry, he's like, I'm gonna go find some guys.
They were his boys, and they followed him around. And also like. There's no reason for us to believe there weren't other people who followed him around.
No. Those were just his main boys.
Yes, exactly. Like, there were plenty of people who followed. He had a whole entourage.
Yeah.
He was quite literally a cult leader. Like, literally, basically, the history of Christianity is that there were a lot of cults at the time, like, going around. This, Christianity just happens to be, like, the most
one
successful.
That got the most, yeah.
Yeah, Christianity is just the most successful cult, like, of all time.
Mm-hmm.
It was a cult of personality around Jesus. Because you gotta think, before that, religion didn't really work that way.
No,
religion was a function of state power,
and it was much less. And that's another thing about Jesus; it was much less personal.
Yes,
you couldn't really interact with
religion.
God.
Was a function of state power, and thus represented all these like abstract ideas of power and idealism and things like that. And then Jesus came along and invented invented Christianity, whose whole thing was like, it's personal. It's you and God. Mm-hmm. It's about your soul. It's not about your actions. It's about what's in your heart. Like. Revolutionary.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the main misconceptions about Jesus during the time is, well, I don't know. There's 2 ways you can look about it. At the time, everyone was thinking that he was saying that he was going to liberate them from Rome, from the oppression of the Roman Empire.
That's what everyone thought that like the prophecy was about.
Mm-hmm. And now, when you look back at it from a different perspective, he kind of was predicting Christianity overtaking the Roman Empire. Because it did. Bitch. But he was like, no, it's not happening now. It's going to happen in the future. And they're like, oh. Kill him.
See, that's the thing. That's the thing about messiahs is it's like you want a messiah that will.
Where are my messiahs with instant gratification?
Where are my Dune 2 enthusiasts? It's like the messiah is supposed to be this political liberator, this outsider who comes in and is prophesied or foretold, and is like this singular figure that leads a revolution, a change, something like that. And it's like the fact of the matter is that does not exist. That is an ideal, and that Jesus, I think, perfectly embodies that. In that everyone was kind of against it, especially people who knew him, like from his own town, like he talks about or whatever. It's like, no, we like he was supposed to be a great king that was supposed to come, not a boy born in a manger, and like he was supposed to liberate us from Rome, not like preach these ideas about peace and love.
Not give us inner peace. What the fuck?
Inner peace.
Inner peace.
And like I know that Christians love to talk about it too, but also as like from a secular standpoint, I'll give them the props, mama. That's cool as fuck.
Yeah.
But the whole, the gag is, no, it's not about power. It's not about force.
Nothing happening here on this plane matters.
Yes. And I am going to have to do a whole episode about, Nietzsche and, Nietzsche's, critique or, I guess, understanding of Christian, of the, basically the emergence of Christianity as the dominant system of global ethics and morality and worldview. But suffice to say that this was a very historically situated event, and a lot of people, especially Nietzsche, ascribe the success of Jesus' cult to this permanent frustration with the inability of the Jewish people to free themselves from Roman rule.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like when you go years and years of just not being strong enough and not being able to escape the power of this oppressive force, you have to find an ideology that lets yourself believe that winning isn't about power, it's about like being above power.
Christianity is the delusions.
Yes, literally. And like Nietzsche calling it like Jewish revenge or whatever, like all these bad phrasings he used, but he was not an anti-Semite. In fact, he was very much against it, but it made it very easy for people to use his words to justify Nazism. Not great.
Not what we're here for, girlies. You didn't know.
Das Übermensch.
So, after all of this happens, towards the end of Jesus' thing, the Jewish church, the Jewish temple, like the leaders, the Pharisees, start to get really upset with Jesus because he's kind of putting them out of a job.
Yes,
in a sense,
literally.
Because he's saying, "Oh, you don't have to listen to them." In fact, they kind of misinterpreted what my dad said, and my dad said they should be fired.
First of all, can I just say the story of him in the temple?
Hot.
I was going to say. So you agree?
Him throwing over those tables.
I literally, when I cracked that whip, everybody gonna trip just like a circus. Am I right? Him throwing the tables and driving people out. I remember. This is so stupid, but it's because when you're such a sexually repressed little kid in church, like any modicum of like animalistic virility or expression or physicality, you're just drawn to it in this weird way. And like the pastor of the church that I was going to at the time, talking about this story and being like,
righteous anger.
Yes, and him being like, this was a man. We have to remember this was a human man, like taking these tables and flipping them over. This was a violent, like personal experience. Like this was frightening, and he was yelling and like blah. And I was like, Jesus, oh my God. Okay.
I remember, like, obviously I asked a lot of questions as a kid. Now, that one of mine was like, isn't that a kind of a sin because he acted upon his anger? And then my dad was like, no, righteous anger. And then I turned the tables on my dad during the 2020 Black Lives Matter protest.
Period.
I said, hey, Dad, remember the story about Jesus turning the tables?
It's almost like that. The Christian problem isn't with violence, it's with violence that is operated against their preference for the dominance of power.
But what do I know? I'm just a girl.
I'm just a girl. Das Übermensch.
So the Pharisees hire with 13 pieces of silver. They offer Judas, hey, let us know where he is. We're going to go snatch him. And so they do. He has the Lord's Supper. We'll talk about that later. We'll have a whole episode for communion and Lord's Supper. A lot of these individualized stories, I'm sure we'll do full episodes on, but we're just yapping about Jesus.
Well, it's Jesus. He's the central figure of the religion. He's got every single little thing he does is going to get an episode. And we will be taking communion. I've never taken communion before.
You've never? Oh, because you were never saved.
I wasn't baptized.
You were never baptized.
Saved. Well, the one thing I give myself credit for is I never allowed myself. I was like, I'm not. Like, I really, like, there were times when I was like, I wish I was, blah, 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 blah. But, like, at no point was I like, yes, I'll do it.
The crackers were stale. So.
At no point was I ever just like, I'm just gonna, like, gonna do it. I'm gonna believe. Like, I was never that bitch. I was like, I don't believe it.
I should say, I'll forget about it by the time we do the episode and I'll tell it again. But whenever me and my brother would do communion, this is another like doggy paddle story. That we, you know, those little shot glass cups that the communion would come in. Yes, but we would stick our lips in it and do that. We would suck all the way to the end of it. And so our lips were like super.
You were doing the Kylie Jenner lip challenge with the communion shot glass? Oh, you're going to hell. I'm not even going to the circle of hell that you are.
We would do it during the prayer, and so whenever my dad would say amen, we would look at each other and our lips would be like purple.
Stop.
Yeah.
You and your brother, menaces.
Yeah, we were entertaining. Anyway, so they crucified Jesus. He's tried
they killed
by
the bitch.
Pontius Pilate and all of that stuff. He gets crucified, and then they bury him. And 3 days later, bam, he's back.
Bam, he's back. I will say the like him being crucified by ostensibly like Jewish people or whatever is the source, and if not just simply the talking point of a lot of anti-Semitism in Christian communities. And first of all, cut that shit out. Period.
Not
Second
here.
of all,
Take that shit outside.
but the problem is
it.
to lose that sense, like anti-Semitism from that story, they would have to like first recognize, like, okay, I shouldn't be anti-Semitic based on this, because this isn't a story about like Jews as a group versus Christians or whatever. This is a story about like historical figures in this moment that were like reacting to situations. This was literally just people doing what they were. Because then if they thought of that, they would have to think of the whole Bible as a historical document. And they claim it's real, but they refuse to actually engage with it as a historically contextualized text. And it's like they don't want to have to do that psychologically.
No.
So they want to draw
it's
these.
Too hard.
It's too hard. I don't want to think about the implications of the historical circumstances of the time and the way that material reality shapes consciousness. I just want to drink my communion
Grape
wine
juice.
and
hate gay people.
And hate gay people and do the Kylie Jenner whip challenge.
Wait. So he raises from the dead, and he there's sightings of him for 40 days, and then he ascends back into heaven, and to be continued. Basically what he said when he left, he's like, I'll be back. Maybe.
I'll be
Probably
back.
not in your lifetime.
Time will tell.
For the general public, probably not in your lifetime. Whenever he's ascending, I'll be back. Not in your lifetime. Probably not in anyone who's reading this' lifetime. But I'll be back. Don't you worry.
I'll be back. I love Jesus having a supervillain exit.
I like to imagine
I'll
the
be
ascension
back.
being so I never really understood the ascension, so I always imagine it's like a real slow thing. Is that they're just watching him go up until he disappears.
He's like, oh, and I was like, oh.
And
But then it just goes on for a completely long time. They're like, he's
And
like, just give it time.
and he just like keeps
Just
ascending for about like 4 or 5 hours.
Or he's just like, he's yelling the whole time. He's going, ah. Or he's like, oh, you guys, it's getting there's really hit up here. I think I still have a physical body. It's just too much.
Also, me saying also as any sort of transition is incredible.
You being so self-conscious all of a sudden, as if I don't at every single moment go contextualize.
But the idea of the resurrected body,
Girl,
is so fascinating.
okay. One of the things that can I go on a little bit of a tangent for a second?
Sure.
As if I've ever asked permission before.
Well.
One of the things I talk a lot about how one of the things that started me on questioning my faith was thinking about how like Old Testament stories sounded a lot like other like mythologies or whatever, and also just like of the weird like historical facts and conundrum of the Bible, like of like that's not physically possible, like r/atheist stuff. And one thing I remember one of my old pastors preaching about like revelations and like the like when everyone will be called up from the dead or whatever, and he was taking a very like material and direct interpretation of which were substantiated in part by the Bible of the text, and he was like every single little particle like that you were like all this organic matter, like whether it's been absorbed into the soil and turned into trees or like eaten by the fishes, like it will all then come together to create your body once more and we will ascend. He was like, his thesis was like heaven is a physical place.
Okay.
And I was like, well, what about like if you decompose and your carbon goes into a tree and someone eats an apple from that tree and that becomes part of them, like who like isn't you like who you were is now in somebody else, like you know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
like,
like law of conservation of energy.
A
mass.
lot of us have other people in us, you know what I mean? So it's like, so who gets the arm, you know, like who's getting custody?
Who's getting custody of
the arm, bitch? Like I don't want to go up to heaven if I don't get to keep my nuts, you know what I mean? So then it's like, so I was like, wait a minute, and I asked my dad about that after service, and he was like, well, you know, like some people think it's like different. It's more like just like spirits. But and I was like, well, what do you think? And he was like, I think it is a physical body. And I was like, so what do you think? And he was like, I don't think that's for me to know. And I was like,
that the best that his ways are higher. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts.
God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah. So, yeah. One of my favorite pieces of literature to cite during this is the Mountjoy song, Astrovan.
I love Mountjoy.
Yeah. I don't want to see those tears again. You know, Jesus drives an Astrovan. Is a beautiful way that I like to imagine Jesus. Just, you know.
Did you want to say something about the resurrected body before we move on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I like the idea of a perfect body that's free. I don't know, a non.
If you like the idea of a perfect body, you came to the right place, bitch.
Like a non-organic body is just fascinating. Like, you know,
that's interesting to me, because to me the ideal is like the perfect body is fully organic and like fully.
Well, no, like I'm imagining a resurrected body that is free from like sin's curse would be non-organic.
Okay. I feel like I need to chew on that for a minute, because this, in my mind, this is related. Tell me if this makes sense. I used to ask, this is another thing that like r/atheists would get me like thinking about questioning shit. I used to ask, like, Jesus was like the son of God and man, like where did the other half of his genetics come from? Because I remember learning like haploid cells, and like you have to get half of your genetics from your dad and half from your mom. I was like, so is half of his genetics from Mary and the other half is from God? And he was like, well, like, yeah, that would make sense. And then in my head I was like, so it would be from God, it would be like the perfect man, so it would be like Adam, right? So like Jesus was basically the son of Adam and Mary. And my dad was like, I mean, yeah, I guess that would make sense. And that was like my fan theory. And then I also in the past have been like, well, if Mary had a baby without a man, it would have to be parthenogenesis, wherein an oocyte fertilizes an egg, but then it could only be XX23 chromosomes. So Jesus was a trans man.
No.
Jesus was a trans man, bitch.
I thought you were saying we had it wrong, but we had the entire story wrong.
The entire story wrong. He's a trans man.
So Jesus is both a trans man and a T-girl.
Yes. Welcome to my life.
I thought we were going around to support that Jesus is a T-girl theory.
I don't believe that theory. I know it's true.
And you know what? That's the fun part about being all God, because you're omniscient and you are omni-man. You are 100% T-girl and 100%
T-boy. I was about to say, bringing it back to a place of multiplicity, like the Trinity, the ethereal, non-physical, non-man form of God exists in multiplicity, and so does the physical form. If you're a T-boy and a T-girl, you're valid.
To bring it back
to a place of Twitter.
So Eden, this has been a little introduction to Jesus.
I feel like this is just you been like, here's Jesus, what do you think? And me going, but what else is this podcast?
What else is it? But I love Jesus. I think he's a great guy. I love Astrovan. I like the idea of his idea of just being like, if y'all don't start fucking loving each other, you're going to destroy yourselves.
Yes, bitch. Yes.
And we did.
And let it be known that we did.
We didn't listen. We did. We said we were listening, but then continued not to.
And that's the moral of the story.
Anyway, Eden, do you have a verse for us today?
I have something. So today we're going to be reading the verse of my favorite miracle performed by Jesus. This is Mark 5, starting in 21. When Jesus had crossed over again by boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the sea. One of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet and kept begging him, "My little daughter is at death's door. Come and lay your hands on her so she can get well and live." So we see him like on his way to deliver like a miracle. However, so Jesus went with him, and a large crowd was following and pressing against him. A woman suffering from bleeding for 12 years had endured much under many doctors. She had spent everything she had and was not helped at all. On the contrary, she became worse. Having heard about Jesus, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his robe. For she said, "If I can touch his robes, I'll be made well." Instantly her flow of blood ceased, and she sensed in her body that she was cured of her affliction. At once Jesus realized in himself that power had gone out of him. He turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my robes?" We'll stop there.
Yeah, I love that story.
I love that story so much. Also because it's like this, I don't know, with the way the Old Testament like creates and proposes the idea of menstruation as something that is unclean and unholy. Like you can't go near your husband during that time. Like it's unclean. You need to make a sacrifice, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Imagine people who have these like reproductive complications and conditions in which they're like constantly bleeding or like, you know, have things like endometriosis and have pain. Mm-hmm. Like that would be insane.
For 12 years?
12 years. Like the shame that is already associated with that in like an anti-sex, like especially talking about vaginas, but any genital society. Imagine what it would be like if that was ascribed spiritual significance. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then for her to ostensibly or allegedly be cured of this by a religious figure. Phenomenal. So powerful.
And Jesus did this a lot during his like healings, is because a lot of medical conditions were attributed to some sin of you or your family.
Leprosy.
Yeah, leprosy, like being blind, being limp.
Lame.
Lame. Yeah, being limp.
Lame. Yeah.
Like, and he would just be like, okay, you're healed. No need to sacrifice anything. You're good. This was purely a physical condition that needed to be healed.
Exactly. And I think one of my old thesis advisor, Dr. Parker, shout out Dr. Parker, you the best bitch I ever had. Dr. Parker does a lot of work with like really old medieval texts and disability studies. And one thing that they would talk a lot about is the way that like disability was used as kind of like a conceptual framework to think about the afterlife and also to think about the spirit and the soul and like to like create these religious frameworks through which to understand the human condition. And you see this a lot in the Bible, but also in other instances. And that like the role of disability in the New Testament and Jesus as curing it, you can read it in certain ways as problematic if we're taking the Bible as literature, but also if we're taking it as like historicism. Like this is a recognition of the kind of incomplete and incompetence of man and the physical body,
right,
and the ability of Jesus as a figure to remedy that,
right,
which is, you know, a pretty ableist way to view it.
The great physician.
Yeah. But that is like how they understood it and conceptualized it as the time. So for readers of then and for hundreds of years and even now, it kind of emphasizes this role of Jesus as someone who exists not only to cure all ills, but to provide you with a new form of existence, a new body that you were never able to experience
a new
before.
life,
a new technology of subjectivity, transhumanism, as the bitches would say,
as the bitches, cite your sources, the bitches,
post-structuralist.
So we didn't touch on it much, but we could get into it. Yes, we did. Jesus is bisexual. And bisexual is pretty gay.
But that's okay because, as we've said, God is gay all the time.
And all the time, God and Jesus is gay.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for listening to today's service. And as always, thank you to our music minister, Brother Sam, for creating that beautiful piece of music that is our intro and outro.
And if you are a visitor with us today, if you don't mind hitting that subscribe button and rating us 5 stars wherever you're listening, and if you love the show next week when you come back, why don't you bring a friend?
And remember, God is gay all the time.
And all the time, God is gay.